Alright, got put in piece here. Brain is creating thoughts. This is an absolute truth, a fact. We are evolved, mutated primates, product of evolution, that created thinking, the mind, believing God and other delusions with our brains. This is simply a fact. Religion began to be organized 5,000 years ago in Egypt. The Egyptian religion, the afterlife, and the Book of the Dead. Magic. Now, how do we experience the world? So what's been happening since we evolved from primates about 6 million years ago. How do we experience our world? With 5 senses. We have the sense of sight, the sense of smell, very important, sense of hearing, touch, and touch. And religious beliefs emanated from those 5 senses that we understand, trying to understand our world. Where are we? Everything started with sex. Sacred sex. That was number 1. Penis was sacred, vagina was sacred, everything was sacred, it was related, everything was metamorphosized, and a lot of metaphors and symbolism in religion. Symbolism. Well, guess what? Sacred sex relied on the sense of touch, but also incorporated the sense of smell, incense, flowers, psychedelic flowers, because pheromones, animals have pheromones attraction. Then you have the sight, all the gold in the temples and everything. Then you have the sense of hearing, which is the drums and the thunder-like devices that they use in temples, like sheets of metal moving around. And then you have that sense of hearing. You have also the prayers, the sounds, like in Hindu, and all the Buddhism. They use sounds. And then you have this sense of taste, and you taste the sacraments, and everything was incorporated. Today we know that everything is produced by the brain. In ancient times, they believe it was the heart that produced all this, relying on the senses. Everything was sacred. Accepting beliefs of the past, of 3,000, 2,000 years ago, as reality today by educated people, is a sign of a psychosis and a form of also like mental retardation, like schizophrenia, which also believe in imaginary friends to be reality, just like religion. In ancient times, this distortion of the senses was interpreted and believed to be manifestations of God's Spirit. They did not speak English, French, Italian, Portuguese, or other languages in those days. They didn't have a writing as we know today. They have symbols to interpret the world. And these symbols were sacred. Hieroglyphs. That's what the word glyphs. The truth is right in front of everyone if you know how to interpret and if you know the meaning of words. Christ, for instance, means anointed Savior. With the Roman emperors and all the different, since Julius Caesar, and all in Egypt, the leaders, the pharaohs, everybody was a god. Let's interpret, for instance, the word spiritus, spirit, soul. Soul doesn't exist. It's air in our lungs. A spiritus means, a Latin word, spiritus means pneuma. It means vapor. That's the spirit world, which is air in our lungs. The atmosphere was the spirit world. Since ancient times, all the religious beliefs center on manipulating the 5 senses. Let's begin with, for instance, this sense of hearing, sound. When the gods were angry, the clouds and all that, they produced thunder. Thunder was a noise that was horrifying. And Religious priests imitated the sound with drums. You know when you take a metal piece and go like this, sheets of metal, and produce all this, very, similar to thunder. They do it, and they used to do it as a special effects in the temples.
Lined inside and out with gold. It had 4 gold rings fixed to its sides, through which were passed gold-covered poles of acacia wood. It was topped by a lid of pure gold called the mercy seat, on which sat 2 golden cherubim with outstretched wings.
Yeah, it's all bullshit, all myth.
At this particular time, Egyptians did not have a hard currency, at least not in the form of gold.
Yeah, people believe this is real, and this is not so.
Into the desert to be beaten down at sheets to cover the ark.
Yeah,
it really would have had to have been in probably rather somewhat large objects.
Temples received not only boats, but other sacred objects being carried on poles.
I say Syria nauseam.
This kind of iconography would have been known in the wider Middle East.
Oh, I think this imagery went outside of the temple walls and was known in the wider world that
So sounds were sacred. Also, we have trumpets. So a lot of in the Bible, the trumpets that got the walls of Jericho down. We have the trumpet of truth, which is in the ark of Titus. By the Jews. Also, the trumpet represents life, used by the genies. Notice the trumpet on Harpocrates. The Celts used to use a trumpet called the carnix, make all these weird sounds. Here it is in a Tropaiomos Julius Caesar, what God Julius Caesar. Notice the carnix on the right, taken by the conquered Celts. Here it is again. Also the litus on the left side. This horn, I believe that was a musical instrument. Here is copied by the Catholic Church. Horns were symbol of the sun god, and also the horns created sounds. That's the reason they use, to produce these sacred sounds. Here in the head of Alexander the Great. Notice the penis horns of the sun god Apollo. Notice the sacred rattle on the hands of Isis and the sacred container of the Notice the sistrum, the little noise maker on the goddess Isis. And notice the jar to collect the semen, the sacred river of life. The Catholic Church used these things too. Notice the sacred trumpets of truth, which contain also fire. Judaism originated in Rome. From the cult of Julius Caesar Christ, it was Julius. Here is the trumpet of truth, depicted. Sacred trumpet of truth. And where is the Ark of the Covenant? It's not even mentioned in the inventory in Jerusalem temple. It was a drum, a simple drum. Make all the thunder.
It means a drum that thunders. It was perceived as the voice of their god. It was carried by the Limba people. It was not supposed to touch the ground. It was not supposed to be touched improperly by other people, and it played a tremendous role in their history. It was actually used during war.
The radiocarbon dating gives a date of around 600 years, and this is entirely consistent with the Lemba oral tradition. According to their traditions, there was an earlier Ngoma that somehow was destroyed, we don't know how, and then a new Ngoma was fashioned by the priests. Later Ngoma that I believe I've found, 600 years old, is amazingly ancient for an African wooden object, but clearly not old enough to be the original Ark of the Covenant, reconstructed over history. It's remarkable that the last manifestation of the Ark should actually be as old as it is.
Today we know all this is created in the limbic system of our evolved, mutated brains. For all the people suffering from Christ psychosis or face psychosis, this is what God comes from, the limbic system. Tempora mutantur, nod mutamur in illis. Time brings all to light. Time all is... Religious services are used to control the mind, keep people retarded. With sounds, with prayers, with everything, with movement. One like this, you go like this. One like this, you kneel down, etc. Kneel down. Believing God or faith is an intellect stagnated psychosis not needed in this 21st century. in pace di oro.